Hi folks, it's Andy. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. We have a lot of questions for you today, so we'll try and get through them as fast as we can. But yeah, this is it's going to be a good show. It's going to be a good show. We've got some fantastic questions. Before we jump into them though, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. You know, all the YouTube stuff. Hit subscribe. A little bell appears. That's the Kendo bell. You ring that bell, you're going to start getting better at Kendo. It's a scientific fact. It's already been proven. Exponential growth is what I hear happens when you ring that bell, so make sure you do that. But most importantly, if you like the videos that I put a video out yesterday talking about this weekend's All Japan Women's Championships, which will be happening on Sunday. We're looking through the program, have instructional videos, we have videos where we analyze Kendo videos from Japan, and of course this weekly show where I take questions from you guys, and obviously it's all free. All you have to do to support it is shop at KendoStar.com. KendoStar being my website, of course. It's fantastic, brilliant, amazing, wonderful Kendo equipment. So yeah, get to KendoStar and shop there. All right, even if you just want a tenigiri or something. We've got some great tenigiris, by the way. I haven't talked about our tenigiris for a while, thinking about it. Well, we've got some awesome ones, so go and check them out. So yeah. Right, let's let's have a look. So first one, this is quite a long one. This was a comment on last week's video. Hi Andy Sensei, thank you for all you've done to the Kendo community. No problem. This week I was especially interested in the questions you got about Sensei Authority, especially those who haven't ranked. I came from the US with an extraordinary sensei. He had to be because the local federation is very powerful and our city is rather isolated in the extreme far reaches of the region. Now I moved overseas and I'm really struggling with trusting my local sensei. He's Nidan and not advanced since I've been here more than 4 years, even though he takes students to test every fall. Fall being autumn, I assume, for us in the UK. Our place in the federation here is similar to what I saw in the US. Although a city of several million, we're the only dojo within a few 100-kilometer radius, but there are 2 other Nidan in town who, in the opinion of most local Kenshi, are far better teachers and also do better Kendo. Yet the existing sensei has forbidden them from establishing a second federation dojo in our city. I particularly have trouble trusting this sensei because he's cheated at tournaments. And I even ended up as the victim of this by being personally banned for participation for a year at the national level, and my name was sent to every dojo in the country to be held up as an example. Had the sensei been censured as the primary actor, the entire dojo would have been banned. So I accepted the penalty and took the fall. But the fact that the sensei initiated the cheating still weighs heavy on me. Afterwards, some of the other Kenshi approached me asking to help take sensei down. My duty to my US senseis and my own sense of honor meant I had to very firmly refuse, but I still don't feel good about him as my teacher. Even before the pandemic, it affected my attendance. I don't want to train under someone whose teaching is so questionable. I know you're very busy, but I would be most appreciative of some advice how to proceed. Okay, so this is a very, very difficult situation, all right? Very difficult. Here's the bit that I don't understand the most, and this is, you know, why someone would cheat at a Kendo tournament is one thing. I don't get that, to be honest. Like, get good in it. But yeah, more importantly, this bit where he said there's 2 other Nidan and the existing sensei has forbidden them from establishing a second federation dojo. How does he forbid them from doing that? I don't get that. Like, how does he stop them? How does that work? I'm curious, because like he's not in control of those guys' lives, right? Those people can decide to set up a dojo. It's nothing to do with the original person, especially if they're the same grade. Like I could get it if like the original sensei is like 7th dan and this guy's like shodan and he's saying he wants to set up his own dojo. Still don't think you could stop him. But I could kind of get him not liking the idea. But when you're all the same grade, what's that about? So first off, I think the other Nidan, if they agree, if they are indeed apparently as you describe, the best bet is to try and convince them to set up the other dojo, whether they've got this other sensei's blessing anyway, whether they've got it or not. Look, as for cheating at the tournament, you have to not do that. That's crazy. It doesn't matter if your sensei tells you to cheat. I mean, we've all seen the Karate Kid, right? Yeah, don't be don't be the 17-year-old Johnny. Don't be the one that sweeps the leg, right? You gotta you can't do that, right? Even if your sensei says cheat at the tournament, you have to refuse. You do not do that. I'm not quite sure what you did to cheat at the tournament, to be honest, as you've not said, but yeah, look, obviously it's not right. I think the best thing to do, I mean, obviously, is try and get these other ones to set up the club, and if they don't want to, then you set it up and get them to come. Because obviously, if the situation is as you're describing, I doubt you're the only person that's got reservations or concerns about training there, so I'm sure that you'll be able to get following. But if, like I say, I'm going off what you're saying here, right? And like, what I don't need is like, I don't want to get into it too much, but I don't need the other people to email me saying, well, I'm the other side of this argument, which is what I got last week. So, I'm not interested in that sort of thing. What I'm interested in is just the facts. So, going off what you said, this is what I would do, all right? And, stop cheating at tournaments, even if someone tells you to, all right? Next one. Hi, Andy. First and foremost, thank you for the time and effort. Kendo Rank is valuable. Good. I'm glad you find it useful. I have a question regarding the Bokuto ni yoru Kendo Kihon Waza Keiko Ho, and particularly the fourth one, Hikiwaza. Okay, so I remember this question. This one you just missed out on last week. I did comment on it. When in Tsubazeriai, the Kakarite is supposed to push the Motodachi's Tsuba to force him to lift his arm and expose his door for Hikido. Our sensei insists on the pushing part resulting most of the time on the Motodachi taking a hit to his head from the Kakarite's Bokuto. I watch a lot of videos of Japanese kids demonstrating this particular kata, and they never really push to realistically create Motodachi's response. It's more like choreography where the Moto is lifting his hands up at the right time. My question is, I guess, do we need to move along seamlessly, or do we need to actually push to create the reaction? So there's two things. One, so when you get into the Tsubazeriai in Kihon Yon, number 4, so the Kakarite hits men and Motodachi blocks, right? Then you come to Tsubazeriai. Then the Kakarite pushes on the Tsubamoto and does Hikido, right? And the Motodachi raises her hands. When you get to Tsubazeriai, first off, if someone's getting hit in the head, you're doing Tsubazeriai wrong, okay? When you do Tsubazeriai, and the Zenken video says this, the Bokuto shouldn't be in front of your face, okay? So it should be going to the right diagonally, so that when it's pushed down, it comes down over your shoulder, yeah? So that's the first thing. You shouldn't get hit in the face, because it shouldn't be in front of your face. That's not how you do Tsubazeriai. It's the same with the Shinai. Shinai shouldn't be really in front of your face when you do Tsubazeriai. It should be crossing, yeah, not upright like that. That's the first thing. Secondly, when you do the push, it is a gentle push. You don't have to really slam it. It is choreographed. The whole set of the Kihon is choreographed. It's not quite the same as the Nihon Kendo Kata. This is the basic practice. That's what Kihon means. So it's about practicing the correct basics properly. You don't have to make it super realistic. That's not the point of it, all right? That's not even what it was developed for. It was developed to help beginners learn the basic movements of Kendo. So don't get over, you know, you don't need to go over the top with like, oh, you have to really shove them down here so you definitely get the right reaction. That might be the case when you're doing it with the shinai in a realistic situation, but you don't need to do that in the bokuto, you know, the bokuto ni yoru kendo kihon waza keiko, because you just it's not there for that. All right, so calm that down a bit maybe as well. Okay, so but like I say, most importantly, you need to do the tsubazari eye properly, so that the bokuto are crossing in front of you, sort of like this. Okay. Next one. Hi, Andy Sensei. Thank you for your videos. Anywho, I get hit by debana and kaishi techniques. Debana kote and kaishi do especially. My sensei says that this happens because I'm not communicating with my opponent and frequently just toss out techniques. Makes sense. To address this, my sensei is telling me to identify and launch the moment my opponent starts moving / reacting in response to my seme. How would you go about addressing this situation? Exactly like your sensei says. Yeah, you're getting hit by debana and kote waza because you're just attacking on your own accord with no regard for your opponent. In Kendo, it's a bit of a paradox actually that exists in Kendo. There's this concept of aiki, both spirits working together. When you do kirikaishi, right, man, like this, and the receiver is receiving, you work in unison as you go forward and back. And if that isn't sort of working, and you both acting independently, the kirikaishi is a total mess, right? Well, Tachi-ai is the same. Tachi-ai is when you actually stand, or say Jigeko or Shiai, whatever. When you face an opponent, it's the same. You're working together whilst at the same time being adversaries. If one of you's like not sort of buying into the game, not doing their part, then the whole thing doesn't work, and then you're going to get hit easily, because if that person is looking at you, watching you, and reacting to you, and considering your kendo, and you're just acting on your own, just throwing out waza when you feel like it, you're gonna get hit with the debana waza, the kaishi waza, this sort of thing. So what you have to do instead is from your kamae, get to your cutting distance, and it depends, of course. Depends on the person that you're practicing with, but if we're talking about gokaku geiko, when you're practicing with someone who's a similar level to you, then you have to watch the opponent and then try to attack when you think there might be a chance, or try to get them to attack so that you can do the ojiwaza. Of course, it depends on the level that you're at. I don't know that this just from this question, of course. If you're with your sensei, then you're not going to make these opportunities real often, if at all. So the best thing to do is, when you do your kamae, get to your distance, still try to have the good spirit, and then make the bold strikes with full spirit and stemi, throw everything into them, and that's the best way to practice with the senior grade. But with someone who's your peer, you do a sort of similar thing, but you can't just ignore what's happening with them. Okay, it's a bit of a different situation to when you're with the sensei. I know I've said this in the past, like with the sensei, you should sort of just concentrate on making your own strikes, and that's true because you're not competing with the sensei, and it's not that you're competing with your peers in Jigeko, but you are of a same level or a similar level, so it is a more competitive interaction where you're both trying to make successful strikes. When you're doing with sensei's not trying, the goal of his keiko isn't to make successful strikes on you, it's to raise the level of your ability, right? So competing with him is a bit of a nonsense. So I hope that makes sense. I know it's a bit complicated. I'm sure you'll get it though. Okay, next one. Say you were to time travel to the 1910s and you had a say in the development of kendo kata. You could eliminate one of the 10 we have, and you could insert another sequence of moves that would become the replacement kata. What would they be and why? Okay, I don't really know, to be honest. I did read this question when it first came up, and I'm not enough of an expert to give a good answer to this on kata, certainly. But I don't know if I would remove or change any of them. I quite like them as they are. I guess they all have their own sort of lessons, but I think the problem we have is we sort of overthink them a bit too early in our kendo career. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd remove any of the current ones. Rather, I would, yeah, I think I'd rather, I'd be happy to think about adding, but I don't, I don't know what and why. I don't know enough about Kenjutsu, to be honest. I don't know anything about it. I don't care to. So, yeah, sorry. How should I treat Keiko with as senpai? I'm currently preparing for Ikkyu. A few weeks ago, our sensei told us to do Jigeko, and I was paired with somebody of 4th Q. As expected, he had many openings. I was able to hit him easily with Shikakewaza. Sensei jumped in after about a minute and explained that he wasn't ready yet, at which point the Jigeko turned into me just showing opens for him to strike. In retrospection, I realised I was beating him up and he was learning nothing in the encounter. Now, my question as a Q is, it is my understanding that I should be focusing on Shikakewaza, but I should not be taking advantage of opportunities given to me by my Kohai. Should I be taking those opportunities as well as purposely giving opportunities? Should I not take opportunities with Kohai and only give them and save my Shikakewaza practice for when I'm training with Senpai? How should I approach this going forward? All right, this is a difficult one. It's not that difficult, actually. You're absolutely right. When you're, working towards Ikkyu, right? So you said that you're preparing for Ikkyu, so you're not Ikkyu yet. You're basically Nikyu, let's say. Like, there's not a real gap between that and 4th Q, right? There is, but it's tiny. So it's not the sort of gap where you need to be thinking of what they call hikitate geiko, where you're sort of bringing up the student, because you're not far enough above him for that to be benefit, or for you to really not realize, but really to have the experience to properly carry that out. Instead, the thing is when there's an obvious difference between ability between yourself and someone that you're practicing with, and it could be caused by many factors. Yeah, you need to concentrate on Shikakewaza, but what you can do with this sort of encounter is you can strip it back a little bit and just focus on trying to make points at the best possible opportunities, not just when they're available, because obviously they're probably available all the time if there is quite a difference in skill there. So try to do Debana type Shikakewaza. So try to get them to attack and then you hit men or kote. Okay, try this sort of thing and try to make good strikes, but don't just beat them up. I don't think you should be obviously giving them opportunities either, because like I say, when you're not, when you're still a Q grade, you're not in the position where you should be doing the Hikitate Geiko, in honesty. So, like I say, I'd be just a bit, you don't need to rain down blows on them, but just pick them and try to make them at fantastic opportunities. All right, you don't need to do loads of them. Focus on your kamae, your footwork. Make sure that when you do strike, you're not doing sugiashi. Yeah, you're not moving the left foot before you strike, and that you're doing proper fumikomi. All right, and make sure that you're doing strikes that will pass you through your Ikkyu exam. You don't have to do loads of them. Next one. Hi Andy, on the topic of Shinsa, that's gradings, you've often talked about what's required of the examinee in order to pass. That is depending on the graduation of finer techniques, seme, sen, and general control of the opponent over the course of the fight. Yes. My question would be about the opposite. In your opinion, what are the absolute no-goes that will cost you your exam and should never be done in Shinsa? That is fantastic. That is a fantastic question. Probably something we don't concentrate enough on, right? And yeah, we always talk about what do I have to do? What should I do to pass my grading? But yeah, what should you definitely not do? So, it depends, of course, on the grade, but in general, all right, you should not excessively step back or retreat. All right, you should not try to compete with your opponent. Of course, you might need to adjust your distance, and you can step back with seme, but that's higher grade stuff. Like, don't even think about that. Actually, like if you're grading below like 5th dan or even 6th dan. So, I'd be dubious of doing that in my next grading. In fairness. So yeah, don't retreat too much. Don't try and compete with the other person. Okay, you don't have to win. You can't win. All right. You don't have to hit them more than they hit you necessarily. You do have to make valid strikes though for the most part. But don't be just trying to block, and don't treat it like it's a shiai. I don't believe in a hard distinction between shiai kendo and grading kendo. I just believe in a difference of strategy. And when you're in grading, you need to be showing that you can make the good kamae, good seme, and good yuko datotsu. No one wants to see you sort of on the showing. When you block, obviously it's where it is a negative thing. It's happened. It's okay to do, especially in shiai, but it's best not to do it in the grading. Into other things, of course, is in terms of no-goes, it's like, don't let your borger come untied. Learn to tie it properly before you go. Don't wear it wrong. I'll for the most part, I think I'd fail most people if their borger was worn incorrectly. I wouldn't. Depending on the level, I probably wouldn't fail somebody at a lower Q rank, like at IQ, and potentially even Shodan, if their borger came untied just once, because it could happen to anyone that. But depending on what it was, I know other senseis that would just fail you on it, and I can understand their point of view. If it happened twice, though, yeah, you're out. But once you sort of nidan upwards, yeah, you don't get. I wouldn't give you a chance then. Stuff like that. Don't forget your kata. And all this sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's mostly it. And obviously, don't do anything offensive. Don't lose your temper. Don't try and over appeal to the judges. Don't act like an idiot beforehand. Don't make a fool of yourself at the venue. Don't do anything that's going to create a negative impression of you overall. Next one, dear Andy, thank you so much for all the Kendo rants. No problem. If I understand correctly, the state of Japanese craftsmanship, example Borger and Bokgen, is in decline. What choices can we as Western consumers make in order to halt or reverse this trend? Not very much, frankly. It's a problem with the Japanese economy, and it's the fact of the matter is young people don't want to become Borger craftsmen. The other problem you've got as well is that, as I spoke about many times before, especially with Borger, the quality difference doesn't generally justify the price difference. So even in Japan, you're seeing a decline in that sort of demand for made in Japan Borger. So yeah, unfortunately, I think it's something we're going to have to accept. And for the most part, it's already happened for a very large part of it. Borger's been made outside of Japan for a very, very long time. There's many craftsmen outside of Japan that are much more experienced than the craftsmen in Japan. It's not the kind of thing that the people selling the Borger made in Japan, of course, would necessarily have you, necessarily advertise, of course, because they want you to support their work in Japan, which I understand. But the fact of the matter is that, and that's why, we operate as we do. It is unfortunate. I don't think there's a lot that like I say, we can do from this side to do that. And I'm not necessarily sure we have to. At the end of the day, these industries are. The craftsmanship in Japan itself is in decline because that's the choices that people are making as individuals. They're choosing not to go into these industries. So I don't think, these days, people want to be businessmen, or they want to work for the government, or they want to work as police officers, or especially in Japan, anything that is what's called a komuin, a public service worker, is considered a good job to have. So these are the sort of considered quite sought after jobs. Kendo Craftsman, not so much, unfortunately. It's a shame with Bokken, of course, and it is a shame with uniforms, because, you know, the made in Japan uniforms can be really, really super nice, super expensive, or super nice. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's, I think the ship's sailed there. Next one. Some of the stitching has come undone on the bottom edge of my door. I've included a picture for reference. Is this a problem that will eventually get worse? Is it okay to cut off the leather sticking out? Do I need to have it professionally repaired? Thank you for the advice. Okay, so I've seen the picture. It's a bit of the Tojikawa is a little bit broken. They are double sewn, so it's not a major issue, to be honest. You don't need to have it professionally repaired at this point. Obviously, they're getting hit with the shinai. These things can happen. It's not that unusual. What I would do, I'd get a dab of super glue and just glue it back down. It'll be absolutely fine. Just to reinforce it a little bit there. It won't start coming untied anymore after that, I'm sure. That'll be the easiest, quickest, and cheapest way of sorting that out. Next one, when you talk about Borg durability in the context of stitch width and pitch, what's the bit that actually wears out first? Does the fabric wear through, or do the stitches come out and undone? On a related note, how do you tell when a Borg futon is dead and worn out? So when I talk about the durability, you add stitches in the Borgu to add durability in the sense of, especially where it's going to suffer from abrasion, so the actual fabric can wear away. So sometimes you see it on very old Borgu sets, the fabric's worn away, you still have the stitches, but the shin, the inside padding of the futon is starting to show through. So you add the stitches to prevent that. So that's why you'll find on like some of our sets, like the Vanguard, we put this tighter stitching on the areas where it rubs against your shoulders or against your thighs. But the wider stitches where you want the protection, because of course the closer the stitches, you get the durability, but you lose the protection. Okay. The pitch, that's the sashima, they call it, the width of the stitches. That can help with softness and protection. But if you go too far on them, then of course the longer they are, the easier they are to break. That can happen too. So it's best to find the right balance with that. So yeah, that. Both can happen though, you know, but generally the fabric tends to wear through the most. On a related note, how do you tell when a Borgu futon is dead or worn out? So it tends to happen on cheaper Borgu sets when they use like you see these Borgu sets out there. I've talked about this a lot on here, where you see like $300 Borgu sets. And I've told you what's inside them is that recycled carpet underlay stuff. And that stuff is like made of reformed like stuff. Sponges and stuff like that. It's all reformed together. And that can break up over time, especially as out after it gets hit. It can break up, and then the futon just goes totally soft and just, you know, you'd be able to tell it's not really offering you protection anymore. If it's not made of that stuff, then, you know, it's not really something you probably have to worry about. It doesn't tend to happen that often. But that's why I'm telling you, and I've been telling you from the start, that, you know, if you want to buy $300 Borg set, be prepared to buy another one in 6 months. Okay, next one. Should people be practicing Kendo right now when we still have this COVID thing going on? Sorry, but I like my family. I think everybody likes their family. I don't think people practicing Kendo don't like their family. Look, you should, you know, I think every country has got its own sort of regulations in place with regards to it. Everywhere's in a different position, has a different approach. You may agree with it, you may not. Ultimately, the choice is yours. You can choose. If you don't feel comfortable returning to practice yet, then by all means don't. You don't have to, of course. Okay, so that's my answer to that. If it's allowed in your country and they are, if Kendo is up and running again, I support that very much. And, you know, I support people to, you know, make their own decisions on it, to be honest. Like I say, if you don't feel like it's safe for you, then I'd certainly advise not doing. If you feel like you are ready to go back, then do so. Is there a reason a lot of Japanese and Korean kendoka have really high pitched ki? Is there a school of thought on what ki should be like, or its purpose? Is it up to the individual to use ki that feels right for them? So yeah, with experience, you will tend to find that people develop their own way of shouting. Everyone's is a bit different. Some people's have quite high pitched ones, some people have very low pitched ones. I wouldn't say there's a particular reason for it, it's just what they've found to work for them and to be the most comfortable and most natural for them. It's like their sort of inner voice in a way. So people do find that as they sort of progress. So yeah, I think that's the thing with that. I wouldn't say there's a particular reason they have the high pitched ki. So yeah. On the back of the previous question from where should one's ki emanate? I've seen videos of some high-grade Japanese sensei whose ki causes their hips to engage their tare moves forward. So, I mean, obviously emanates out of your mouth, but I think what you mean is where does it sort of come? Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. And yeah, it should come from your sort of diaphragm abdomen area, or the hara, as they say in Japanese, or sometimes they use the word tanden, which isn't very common word in Japanese, but they usually say hara, but which is your lower body. I know in the West we like to use the word tanden sometimes. So yeah, it should be sort of from there. I have seen a couple of high-level senseis whose tare actually moves when they do it. I think that's an exception rather than a rule, though, and I don't think it's something you should actively try and copy unless they directly tell you to. So yeah, yeah, that's it really. It's something you kind of figure out as you progress and keep practicing. It's easy for me to say, oh, it should come from your abdomen, but like, you know, I can't tell you how to do that. You have to get the idea through practice. Until recently, I've been contemplating on quitting Kendo because I'm unable to tie my men on properly. No matter how many times I watch your videos and other videos on how to put bogo on properly, I seem to fail. Is there something that happens? Is it something that happens to every beginner? Is it just me? It's approaching 2 years since my last Kendo session. What should I be focusing on at the moment? Because I feel quite lost. Thank you and everyone at the early access group for restoring my motivation in Kendo. All right, so don't quit because you can't tie your men. You just need to practice it. Just practice it at home over and over again until you can do it. It's not difficult. You're probably overthinking it. Yeah, just relax. Just sit down and just do it just keep practicing it until you've done it, until you can do it consistently. You'll be fine. Just follow the video I've done on it and whatever other videos you find helpful, and you'll manage. Just make sure you're tying the knot properly, because that's where a lot of people fall down on that, to be honest. And that's in terms of what you should be focusing on at the moment, that yeah, getting used to tying your bogo on again properly. Okay, but don't give up on it. Just you know, keep at it, and I'm sure you'll be absolutely fine. Next one. In the past, I think you stated on your Kendo rants that gradings are part of it, but do we over obsess about them? Okay, so here's I think it's an understatement to say that gradings are part of it. Gradings are an essential pillar of Kendo, of what it is, as is Shiai, okay, as is Keiko, all right. These are, and then another is Shimpan, okay, and you could probably say kata is in there somewhere. It's really in the grading bit though, isn't it? I'm joking. All right, calm down. Grading is it's inseparable from Kendo progress. Okay, so no, we don't obsess about it. We under obsess about it. Kendo grading should be a constant milestone and a constant goal in your Kendo practice. You should constantly be considering, even if you're a competitive player and your main focus is Shiai, you should constantly also be considering during your Kendo practice, how am I going to achieve my next grade? Okay, how am I going to get my Kendo into the position where it's going to achieve the next grade? And I say that very much towards people who are also very competitive, because you can't do good Shiai without good Kendo. All right, it's not different. I've said that before. There's a reason, right, that all of the very best competitive Kendokai in the world are all very high grades. Yeah, and they all pass their grades because they've got fantastic Kendo. Yeah, they use different strategy in the Shiai than to what they do in the grading. Yes, but they don't do different Kendo. That's why you can recognize them even though they don't have the Zekken on in the grading. Yeah, so you know, you have to grade if you want to improve at Kendo. You can't stop at whatever Dan and then just think you're going to keep improving, because you won't. You just won't. You can pretend you will, you can tell yourself you will, but you won't. From the outside, everyone's going to think that you're not. Not that it matters what other people think, but you'll be wrong. All right? So, yeah, it's not, we don't over-obsess about them. To some extent, we under-obsess about them. Will Kendo Gamer be coming back? Probably not. It was fun. I enjoyed doing Kendo Gamer, but I don't have time for it. It takes up a lot of my time to sort out Kendo Gamer. It is a reasonably stressful series of videos to make. Despite the fact that they're supposed to be quite fun, and they are fun. I do enjoy doing them, but it is a stressful process. It's a difficult process, and it's not something that's a particular forte, and it's not that massively popular either. All right, and I get the odd comment every now and again. Can we have Kendo Gamer back? I sometimes get it. Kendo Gamer, by the way, if you don't know, it's where every now and again I've sort of done video game live streams and talked about Kendo at the same time, but you know, it's a little bit redundant. I feel like, you know, if we're going to talk about Kendo, we can do it in this format, right? Okay, so, and you don't need to see me playing video games. I'm rubbish at them. Okay, there's one more question. I've missed it off here, so I'm going to go and copy it. I'm going to put it on here, and I'll be back in just a second. Oof, okay, we're back again. So, yeah, I remembered when I was copying through that there was one about a specific thing, because it needed me to do a bit of research. And then I realised I'd forgotten to actually copy it onto the sheet. So, here we are. Last question. After reading Bennett Sensei's book, Kendo Culture of the Sword, fantastic book, here it is. He briefly discusses in the last paragraph, page 228, the conflict of tatami logic versus table logic. If table logic would be broadly applied to Kendo, would it still truly be Kendo? So, should we have a look at that paragraph you're talking about? I'll read it out for you, okay? Go and buy this book if you can get it. I'm not sure if it's still in print. It is a fantastic book about the actual culture of Kendo. I think there's a lot to be learned. So it says, the risk to Kendo if Japanese hegemony is compromised by a more egalitarian approach to international administration is described by Tanaka Mamoru as a conflict between the tatami logic versus table logic. The former refers to the traditional Japanese hierarchical way of learning and running organizations by adhering to the teachings and guidance of seniors and teachers. The latter is the Western practice of deciding matters in an open democratic forum. Wary of how rules and conventions in judo have been progressively altered by non-Japanese influence to the sport's ultimate cultural detriment, Tanaka advocates that Japanese step back and reassert the absolute value of the ippon or yuko datotsu and promote educational kendo over sports kendo. To achieve this, it is vital that tatami logic controls the table so that budo, for the sake of education, based on correct technical principles, can be maintained. So, what we're talking about is you've got your tatami logic, which is the sort of traditional Japanese hierarchical way of thinking and organizing things. And that's how Kendo works, right? And then you've got the table logic, which is the sort of more Western way where everybody meets around a table and discusses and stuff like that. Now, look, if we applied that to Kendo, would it still truly be Kendo? In my opinion, no. Kendo is Japanese culture. It's inherently Japanese, and it has to be studied in the Japanese way in order for it to be studied correctly. This is my opinion. I am a strong advocate of, and this, you know, you might not like this, but I don't think that the table logic, although I think it, you know, is excellent in the wider sense of society, being from such a society myself, I think there's massive benefits to the application of what they say is the tatami logic, which is particularly relying on the hierarchical structures to some extent, respecting our seniors, our elders, our more experienced, and following their example, especially in the context of Kendo. I'm very much somebody that's come from studying Kendo that way. I have my own ideas, I have my own thoughts, of course I do, but also I listen to my teachers, and I trust my teachers, and I follow my teachers, and I expect my students to do the same to me. So yeah, I think that's what I think. Okay, it's a deep question, it's a deep topic. That's about as far as I want to go into it, as we've been into this video for quite a while now. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, shop at KendoStar, and I'll see you all next week. Bye bye.